welcoming some people to talk about
Sure.
their postcards or
Sure.
postmarks,
Always
and
like to look at postcards.
a good education for all of us, including myself. So, without further ado, welcome.
We'll see. It turned out that I didn't have that many from Luck or Milltown or any in the immediate area, so this covers a larger area, actually, and I hope you don't mind. It's mostly in Burnett County and Polk County, and a few things that are a little more widespread than normal to Wisconsin. And then I have a little quiz at the end. It's only 2 questions, but a little fun to do, I guess. So, first of all, I brought with some envelopes here that you store cards in, to protect them. So if anyone needs some of these, they can sure take them, because if you have cards that are worth keeping, they probably should be protected. And if they're worth $30, $40, $50, take a solid plastic one, because any bend on the corners or anything like that really decreases their value. Creases and spots, if you drip on it or anything like that. So these are free if anyone needs it. I also brought some postcards here that show the different styles of the stamp box, and I gave the dates and when they're from, so oftentimes you can get an idea how old the postcard is from the stamp box. And there's a list here. This gives some further information on it too, that needs to be looked up.
Do you want us to make some copies of those?
They can if anyone wants it.
Anybody would like to have a
Sure.
copy? How many are we, about 10?
Okay. Foolish questions. This is the only foolish question for today. It says, fishing today, my good man? He says, no, I'm decorating a spider web for the 4th of July. There's a whole series of these foolish question postcards from the early 1900s. I think they're kind of funny. I collect comic postcards too, so I've thrown a few of those in here just to change it a little bit. Now, the postcard era is when postcards were really popular, roughly from 1901 to 1920, but especially around 1908, 1909. The majority of postcards you see, if you go to a dealer, are in a matter of a few years from about 1907 to 1912. So those are well-represented years. You get New Year's cards from those years with nice decorations on, and those are kind of collectible. Getting earlier than 1905 is kind of difficult, however. Sometimes you just find an interesting card looking through things, and I found this, the card of this man, and on the back it said, yours in the service of our Lord, for Liberia, Africa, Henry Laudall. And it said Luck, so I just picked it up, because I figured someone might know who that is. And when I talked here on the Indian relics, the young woman was a relative of this, so I have some information on him here now too. He died in Liberia in 1981. This is Main Street on Luck. Chuck told me that this is the first Luck. Main Street was in a different area. Is that right? Okay. Well, the only one I have of Luck downtown anyway.
That is, the lake is in the, looking right down Main Street.
Is that the current Main Street or the?
No, it's the
first one.
the east one, Main Street.
Yeah, that's what you told me before, I thought.
Maybe.
Not sure I have a date on this. Not that we have a date on the postmark or anything like that.
It would probably be between 1900 and like 1905 or something, because in to 1910 they moved over here, but
Okay.
by 5 to 10 or something.
Well, we can, I'm not sure if I have the postcard with. If so, we can look at the back and see. Yeah, before 1907, the back was undivided. It was only for the address. So if you find a card that has a line down the middle where you can write a letter on one side and the address on the other, that's from about mid-1907 or later. If it doesn't have that, it may be earlier, but it isn't necessarily earlier. Here's a picture of Big Butternut Lake in 1909. I'm sorry about that checkerboard pattern. Russ tells me that's due to the moire effect, due to the half-toning that this was printed on and things like that. So I have a few that will look like that. That's Butternut Lake in the spring. Here's Butternut Lake in the winter. good ice fishing. And butternut lake in the summer. I like that postcard. This is another card I found that was just interesting because on the back it says raising the barn of Victor Swanson. That was my grandfather's name, but that certainly wasn't his barn. So Russ knew who that was. It's by Cushing. It says Cushing on the back.
Yeah,
Cushing, so.
It's out on highway, not G, but the one next north to it, about 2 miles from Wolf Creek, I'd say. Reynold Swanson, his wife Ruby lived there until this winter, and then she's in a nursing home. But the barn is no longer, well, the foundation, oh, it's gone.
You can see the old log barn here, and then the newer barn they're putting up there, which looks quite nice, I think. Those nice, what do you call these? Not sure the proper name for it.
Cupolas,
Cupolas?
or ventilators.
Okay.
Barns, the cows had so much moisture in the breath in the winter and everything, if you didn't have ventilation going up through the top, it rotted out the haymow floors and everything.
Yeah, imagine. Okay, Amory. This is probably the 30s or 40s. I don't know the date on it. This is one I sold on eBay, so I don't have much information on it anymore.
Is that looking north or south?
I think it's looking south, but I wouldn't swear to it.
No,
You know where the Ford dealer was?
I think it's north because of the railroad tracks.
Oh, that's a good point. I think you're right there. And a few more from Amory here. I'll put 4 on one view. There's Main Street. See if I can find the dates on this. 1912. This one, 1925. And this one is between 1904 and 1918, going by the postmark box. And this is the, I'm not sure where that is. I can't read the notes very well.
I can put the light on here.
Oh, that's, oh, wow.
Did you see that?
I can see it now. I don't have what that is there. I didn't write everything down. This is the bird's eye view of Osceola. Looking north, I believe. Here's when Osceola had a trolley car. That was in 1912, that was postmarked.
Yeah, they didn't ever have a trolley. That's a joke postcard.
Is it?
Yeah, they didn't have trolleys they made some of these joke ones
Okay,
like that.
well.
You can see, if you look carefully, you
Yeah.
can see it doesn't quite,
Yeah,
it's a little sharper than the rest of the picture.
yeah. All right, well, that's visible.
So it's even probably more fun because it's fake.
Okay. And lumbering has always been a big industry in Wisconsin. So the ones I like on here are the ones with the bark. I think that's tamarack bark or tanning leather. Is that right? It's 38 cords. I think that's for tanning leather.
Yeah. In the summer, they ran, in the winter, they cut logs, and in the summer, they did barking.
Actually, on all of these photographs and postcards, you're probably going to know more than I do about it. This one is interesting because you don't often see them actually doing something. They're decking logs in that view. Usually they're just standing by logs, standing by a team, something like that, but they're usually not doing too much in the line of activity. And this one is quite a load. I don't know how they were able to do that. I think that's pretty impressive.
They always did that. My grandpa said that when they knew a photographer was coming out, then they would try to build the biggest load they could possibly build.
I don't think they did this for every load.
No. They like to show off a little.
Okay. This is the 1915 World Championship log rolling contest in northeastern Wisconsin. Not the best, but you can see them here on the log. Oh, I'm sorry. There's, I guess the other guy fell off there. Not the clearest photograph.
Says Marinette.
Marinette, yeah, the eastern border.
Yeah.
To show you how things have changed in 60 years. So what they're like now. A few years later, it gets worse yet. This is just a photograph I took years ago. The rest of them are all postcards except for one old one. Farming has always been a big thing in Wisconsin, and my family was farmers, and we raised seed corn, so I'll get any postcard I can that looks interesting related to corn. And the one up here, that's actually in Burnett County, which kind of surprised me because it's about 1912 or so. And Mary is picking corn here with the backboards, whatever they're called. The husk and throw them in there. And then an exaggeration one there. I don't think any of these are my grandfather. We got into seed corn about the mid-30s, a lot of small producers because of the droughts in those years. So there were a lot of small producers in Wisconsin that started around that time. They all eventually quit. Threshing. We were still doing this when I was a kid. I don't remember it, but I have pictures of it. So that's the view of threshing. Not sure where it is offhand. I like this postcard. It's not too old, but it looks like my father because he was the only farmer I knew that wore a pith helmet when he worked. And we had a side delivery like that and everything, so it just looks like Dad.
Probably Alice Chalmers B tractor
Yeah,
in front.
we didn't have that either, but we had a side delivery. Or whatever.
Do you think that was a black and white photo and then hand colored somehow?
Yeah, probably so. You know, they did a lot of tinting for things like that. So I think that's probably true. It's not, it doesn't look like a real photograph. Yeah, cows have always been important in Wisconsin, so I've done that too. Okay, this is Gransburg, looking down Main Street, the north side of Main Street. This is where Dingman's was. I don't know the other stores down there, but that's the one block of Main Street on the north side. Dickerson's Roller Mill. Various views of that. That was sold quite often apparently as an important part for the city. Dickerson Roller Mill. This is a view leaving Gransburg. There must have been someone who went up special and took pictures of things because I have the same photographer with another view outside of Gransburg. So it says leaving Gransburg on the east side, I think, 1910. I think this building is where Gedney's Pickles was, but I'm not sure of that either. This is Oak Street in Gransburg. That's looking north, going down to where you go to Craig's Meadows. There certainly weren't that many big buildings on it when I was here. Certainly not now either. So that has changed a little. And looking at Main Street, looking east, sells shoes, SELC.
You see all the telephone wires?
Shoe, yeah.
They had, we all remember that when we were kids, that they had to have all of these separate wires to have individual lines.
I'm always amazed at how many of those lines there were. These old photographs from the 1800s. So I have quite a few of Gransburg because it's my hometown. There's a train coming into Gransburg from the west. This is the milling and the lumber yard. Bird's eye view, I think that's 1915. Below the dam there. This is on the west side of Gransburg, where Memory Park is now. They had a giant named Big Gus Anderson who was the sheriff there in the early 1900s. And I think he died in 1924, but he was the sheriff back in this area, and these are from 1912 and 1914, I believe. He was 7'6" and weighed 350 pounds, they said. So he's sort of one of the important people or interesting people out of Grantsburg. The other one is probably Olive Rumstead, who was a singer, very famous opera singer, sang all over Europe back about the early 1900s. This is a picture of Big Gust in front of some guards and horses for celebration of the 4th of July, I think. When I bought this, I don't think the dealer had any idea it was a giant. Didn't look close enough and didn't know, I don't think.
So Alan, you're a MD. What kind of a condition is it that would make him that big? Or is it just normal?
Glandular problem, acromegalia.
You think that his face and that looks a little distorted?
Yeah, they normally do. They normally are like that. They have long bone spaces between the teeth and things like that typically. And the funny thing I've noticed is that the 5 or so that I've seen, they're almost all Scandinavian. This Big Gust, this next one here is Johan Hanson, who's from Norway. There's a Johan Petterson from Iceland, and some other Norwegian. All similar like this, and I haven't seen any others, so it's kind of unusual. Robert Wadlow was, I think, considered the tallest giant, and he had visited the area in the 40s, I believe.
Yeah, he came
You wanna
through
know about
St.
that?
Croix, and my mom got a postcard for a picture from him.
Yeah. I know he was in Milltown, and the other all small areas around here too. Wood River Creamery. This is now Burnett Dairy. This is where we sent our milk when we were kids and we were farming. My grandfather had this postcard, and he wrote on the back that it cost $25,000 to build. I don't know the date though. It's probably in the 30s. This is Trade Lake. Still about the same size. Did they dam it up since it looks like there's water in here?
There was
Is
a
there
dam in Trade Lake.
Yeah.
Yeah, and a mill.
Okay, so I think it's dammed up there, and where the store is now, I think it's down here, and these are the residences back there.
You can actually walk along the river in Trade Lake and see the mill race and the Polk concrete foundations that are dammed.
I've never been back there, so.
Yeah, the guy, Trader Carlson, who had the store in there,
Yeah.
his grandson lives in the same house. He took me on a tour. Him and your mother were, or his wife and your mother were in the same writing classes. So you have it in if you want to go explore it.
Okay. Okay. This is Crinersville, a ghost town in Burnett County. Northern Burnett County, getting up pretty close to Danbury. So I actually have 2 pictures of this. One is tinted and one is just black and white. Neither one is postmarked, I don't think. Although I think this one might be postmarked in Veteran, another small post office in northern Burnett County. This is the store at Randall. I bet you Russ remembers that.
My grandpa lived out in that area for a while, and they sent milk up to the train up in that area somewhere. The train came through somewhere nearby, and Randall was their post office.
Well, this is Randall's store. Randall is a small place out near this river.
Well, I'm not sure. I just thought that they got their mail at Randall. But
Yeah.
that's not, was it Randall on the railroad?
Yeah, that was there. That was a post office till about 1951. So,
Oh, okay.
so it's
Yeah.
actually been there
Yeah.
till fairly recently. So, but this is where 48 and 87 come together.
Oh,
Wasn't that Randall's store?
Lutz.
Oh, no, it was
See, Lutz's store was right there.
Oh, okay. Is this correct that that was the place? I think that's what we call it. I'm not sure. This is Baldwin.
Where is this one?
Fallen, Wisconsin.
Oh,
It's on Highway 70. I was there when I was a kid enough.
So is that the Miller store?
The what store?
Miller?
It says A.G. Johnson and Son.
Oh, okay. Well, I just helped on the 25th of this month. That's tomorrow, isn't it? But Saturday,
Saturday.
Fallen has its reunion again, and Stan Miller lives out here. He used to be a teacher here in Luck, and he just finished a book. I helped him finish a book on the history of Fallen, and his parents had the store, one of the stores in Fallen, so
Could
we
be.
had a bunch of pictures and stuff from her.
Could be.
I don't know if that was his store or not.
It says the Gotchin Shoe or something on there.
Oh,
Advertising.
I think that was another one, because he mentioned the shoe store was one of the neighbors.
Yeah. This is one of those moire views of Main Street there. You can see this is the store that was there in the last picture. So I think it might be down here.
Yeah, that looks like the one with the round top. Later, Urbanizer had a kind of a junk shop in there, or antique shop, I guess. And it had burned, then they tore it down eventually.
Okay. This is a roundhouse at Spooner. I'm not sure of the date on this, but I think there's at least 5 engines there. That one, and that one, here, there, and I think maybe there. So they have quite a bit going on there. Postcards like this are generally more valuable. They have a lot of historic value. Surprisingly, there aren't so many of them, so. Here's some of my comic postcards. Send her that more or not. The other one says, "Tell me the worst, doctor," and he says, "She'll be herself again by tomorrow." Okay, here's St. Croix Falls. It's St. Croix or Taylor's Falls in 1910. But I think that's St. Croix, pretty sure.
So we're looking from across the river
Yeah,
and then up the hill.
I think this building is the clubhouse. Probably down, I think that's maybe down below where Clayton's is, maybe up there. I'm not sure again. Like I said, you know more about these things than I do. There's the clubhouse, looking across to Taylor's Falls. So this house looks the same as the last one did in the postcard. The St. Croix River at the Dalles, there's lots of postcards of the old man in the Dalles. I brought with my collection of that. If anyone wants to look through it, I have about over 100 cards from the Dalles there that are kind of interesting. I always like them. This is a photograph. This is 1905 with a Wanigan going over the falls. So I thought that was pretty interesting. I don't know how they would dare take a Wanigan over the falls.
They actually did that because they liked to tear them apart for lumber when they got them to Stillwater. And when they were done, so that they would just take them. And if they got through, fine. If they didn't, they'd collect the lumber anyway.
Okay.
They didn't ride them through.
They didn't worry about it too much, huh?
No. They never could get them back upriver anyway, so.
No. This is the old mill house at the park, Interstate Park. I don't know anything about that, so let me ask if anyone knows. Interstate Park Mills, 1906. Early photograph. I didn't know they had anything on Interstate Park. Park had only been 5 years old then or so. John Dietz family, Battle of Cameron Dam. John Till, he was kind of a quack that lived around New Richmond and worked in New Richmond and Turtle Lake. And he did a lot of advertising, lots and lots of postcards of him.
He did plasters, you know, of certain kind of oil croton oil or something like that.
Okay,
And it
yeah.
would really burn the heck out of you. Stan Saline and I put an article in when we used to do the River Road Rambling column, and it turns out his granddaughter lives in Frederick. She's the wife of the guy who did Wells, can't think of his name up there. But anyway, she sent us a really scathing letter at us making fun of her grandpa.
Really?
But she wouldn't let me publish it.
Okay. Some more views of him. This is when they're picking patients up at the railroad depot, and others would take him out by wagon out to his clinic, I guess. So,
Yeah, he was in and out of jail for his
yeah.
practicing without license.
And getting in and out of the country too, wasn't he?
Yeah.
I think he was forced out, so I'm not sure. There used to be buildings like this in Wisconsin, not so much anymore. That's why we have snow blowers now. These are further north Wisconsin. Butternut on the left side there. Looks like they had quite a main street at that time. I don't think Butternut's that big now. Idlewild Motel. And this is Poplar. This is Main Street. I can't see anything there except there's a church here and one house. But they had a staked trial orchard, which kind of surprised me. Must be trying to see how far north they can grow apple trees or something. So, 'cause it doesn't seem like an ideal place for an orchard. It's not that close to Lake Superior, I don't think. It's not like Lake Michigan when it comes to warming things. Used to be a lot of opera houses around. There was one in Cumberland called Dex. It's kind of neat. I think the building is still there. And there's Eau Claire and Boyceville, and I think this is Glenwood. I didn't get them sized right for the pictures here apparently, but there used to be more opera houses than you think. Another area where I could use some help. Does anyone know who Bill Skipadock is? No? The second one says a Forest County beauty, so I would think it's probably more eastern Wisconsin. Probably Menominee or something. But these are very nice postcards, and ones like this are fairly valuable. You don't run across these very often. In Solon Springs, they had a powwow. This is about 1910 or so. Going from the back of the postcard. Seems like all the pictures like that of powwows are hazy. I don't know why that was. A lot of them are. Automobiles were a source of humor and things like that in the early years, but apparently they thought there were too many accidents and things like that, because there's a lot having to do with accidents, either like blowing up or accidents of a horse and so on. This one in the fairgrounds is in 1908, and that was one of the years when Carl Fisher, who started the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, was doing this sort of thing in the county fairs all around Indiana. I don't know if he did auto polo like that, but he did all sorts of exhibitions with cars and charged $10 to drive someone 60 miles an hour. But things advanced so quickly that the next year they couldn't even, no one would pay $10 to take a ride. And then there were always disasters. That's one of my areas of interest. This is the Lyndhurst train wreck in 1912. That is a little ways east of Wausau. There's a series of 26 photographs, and I was able to get them all, so I got a complete set of those. There were a lot of train wrecks in those years. A lot of tornadoes back then, too. Seems like there were worse tornadoes then than now. This is in Hanover. That was southern Wisconsin. But I thought it was interesting with the buggy hung up on the post or the tree, whatever that is. I have the postcards up my disasters here, the tornadoes, so if anyone wants to look through that, they can afterwards. This is a sinking of the Quincy, and this is on the Mississippi. That was 1906, I believe. That's Trempealeau. background. The flood at Wausau, roughly the same time. I'm not sure what year it is offhand. It did tremendous damage and a lot of bad floods in Black River Falls and Wausau, other places, so they certainly band things up where they need to and have control over that. Okay, postcard. Okay, postcards. These are luck here. The one with the scribble is a rural delivery postcard. There are many different ways they sign that or cancel it. Most commonly, it's just the scribble like this, and they drop it off on the route the same day. So some people collect rural free delivery postcards, which started at about 1901. I don't have the date exactly, but kind of the early 1900s. This is a luck postmark with 4 bars, hard to see. The stamps back then were dark green, so it's hard to see anything on them sometimes. And here's a received one. Both luck and Wisconsin are at the top, and it says received at the bottom. In the early years, they were trying to prove how fast they were delivering the mail, so they postmark it when they send it, and the receiving post office would stamp it for when they got it. So sometimes it's interesting, if it goes to the wrong place, you'll get 3 separate days. And later, they have the wavy lines. That's a common thing in later years.
So that's Cushing. It's to Henry Sosma, care of somebody,
Henry Sagino?
Sorensen Cushing.
Same one that's over at the bottom.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
They're all misspelled somewhere. Frederick. There's a little hard for me to see here, maybe. The one up here, I think, has a 5 after that. It should have a 5 in there somewhere. And that they're called dones. They're a way of canceling it. There were 3 different styles of dones, but the number inside had to do with the postmaster's pay for the year. If it's 5, he got under $500 for the year. You see a lot that are 1 or 2 or something like that, so they certainly weren't paid too much. This is 1907, 1908. He has a 10 there, so he doubled his salary. Pretty busy town in that period. This is a rural free delivery cancel with put the date on there, but not the year, unfortunately. But that increases the value some to have it. The more information, if you have the name or initials of the post carrier, it's worth more. It just depends, if there's anyone that wants it. There aren't many collectors for this sort of thing. This is a fancy post cancel. I think it's a rural free delivery one. It says rural RD for rural delivery, route number 1. It's 1908 or something. I'm not sure I can read the last digit there. So this is probably a rural carrier that had his own hand stamp and stamped it, which makes it pretty rare. So this is fairly valuable. If anyone sees any of these, hang on to them. Call me.
You know, my grandmother was a postmaster in the late 30s and 40s, and she said it wasn't that you made so much money, but by having the post office with the store, you had everybody in come to your area.
Come in.
Yeah, so it wasn't necessarily the post office paid good, but then also you lost your job if a different president got in. Because if you were a Democrat and a Republican got in, then that was one of the patronage jobs. So you, and to get your job, according to Laura Nelson, who's 89 and was our Cushing postmaster, he said you had to contribute to the local party pretty heavy.
Really? I suppose. Anything with the government. So these are closed post offices in Burnett County, called DPOs for discontinued or deceased post offices. It's Fallen, I think that goes about 1915. Ekdal, that was just north of Brandsburg, roughly the same area. That's 1909 on that one. I think that says 1914. Carlsberg, Gaslin. There's a places most people don't recall anymore. There's Swiss, Morrow, Kruger, and I don't know if I can bring that down there. I'm not sure what that one is. Maybe Pete. I think it's Pete, Wisconsin. P-E-E-T for the person who's going around selling land or trying to get people to buy land. Is that right?
Probably, yeah.
Morrow, Webb Lake, Yellow Lake, Trade Lake. This is the only one I have of Trade Lake.
See, a lot of those post offices closed when rural free delivery started because then they would just run a route out to all
Yeah.
the areas, like Cushing ran out a long way around it.
Well, there's sort of some eras where there were a lot of closings, like around 1915,
Yeah, I think
1925,
that
30,
was
so.
partly was that because they were doing the delivery right to the people's homes.
Yeah.
And so they
I guess
didn't
I
really
got
have.
more
Yeah.
rural routes like that over time.
Yeah, and if you only had a little town, it wasn't worth having a post office because nobody came in anymore to the post office.
Okay, Joel, these are Polk County. Evergreen, that's near the river, northwest part. Joel, Lorraine, and I can't read it. Dresser Junction, I think is what that one is. It's Dresser now, of course. These are north, Hines. This is Wayno, that's up on Lake Superior or near it. That gives the whole date, and the crosshatch to cancel it. So that's, that rural delivery one would be worth a little more than just ones that are scratched out.
So, you know that one you said Evergreen? We have the absolutely full Evergreen post office in our museum at Cushing. The
Yeah.
whole thing is a single desk with a bunch of cubby holes in it, and it was an
Mhm.
official post office thing, and Harris's had it, and they donated it to us. So if on Sunday you're not doing anything, come over to the Sterling Old Settlers Picnic at noon potluck, and you can see the whole Evergreen post office.
Okay.
And the Cushing post office window too.
Is it way west of Evergreen Avenue?
Pardon
Is
me?
it way west of Evergreen?
Yeah, Evergreen, almost out to the end, yeah. There's a sign out there that says the school, and then beyond that.
I remember there was
there's
an old house there, I think, when the post office.
Yeah, I think the Harris is
Corner
right,
of
yeah.
You have the duplexes and the other cancels?
Not from those, but we got everything from the Cushing post office, about maybe 50 different stamps and things, or stamping things in that. And it's free if you want to come over on Sunday at noon.
What time?
At Sunday at noon is the Sterling Old Settlers Picnic, and this is all part of Sterling at one time, this area over here, so we invite everybody over.
Okay. Bacon and Attica, I think, are in Barron County. And Nye, Wolf Creek, 1909.
Yeah, Leonard Noyes lived right across the road from us. But he was out, said he went out west in the fall harvesting. So I bet you this is somewhere in the fall, September, yep. And he would work in the fields out in the Dakotas and send letter. Actually, this is sent to him from Wolf Creek. Okay, so maybe his parents, what's it say on the bottom? Elaine. I
Lane
can't.
V, or LCV.
Ah.
LCV.
Well, he didn't marry her, so. Must have been his cousin or something, sister.
Angus, that's near Rice Lake, somewhere near Rice Lake. I can't, Brill maybe is the other one, I can't make it out to my ankle here. Okay, here's the quiz. There's a man out in the field, this is out west obviously, it's not quite local, but it has to do with agriculture. So there's a man out there with his, what, 2, 3-year-old son, looks like a crosscut saw, and a team of 6 horses, and a funny piece of farm machinery. What do you think he's doing? The rest is quiet.
Well, I was gonna say that's pretty. See, you look at the prairie there. It doesn't look like a hayfield. It looks just like kind of like a grassy pasture.
Sagebrush?
Yeah, it sort of looks like that.
He's cutting sagebrush.
Except I don't know. Do you think that, and then it's piling it with that machine behind it?
I don't know what it is. I was hoping for help, but I thought it was interesting enough, and I've never seen it.
Well, and you see, it's got 6 horses on it. It must pull pretty hard.
That's a big team.
Yeah.
what it runs on. I don't see any wheels or anything. And the final question is, what is the most popular battle song ever written?
Well, that's appropriate for our display out there.
Thank you for your attention. And that's another